Hey friends, it's Alex Dalliance, and sitting before me is the Korg DW-8000, the Novation Summit of the 80s. This bad boy was the flagship of Korg synthesizers in 1985, and it features a hybrid architecture with digital waveforms and analog filters and envelopes, and it sounds cyberpunk as fuck. Today I'm going to play some of the presets that it comes with. I don't know if these are the factory presets or the presets that the previous owner put in it, which was Rory's Music Emporium down in Pompano. Thank you guys so much for this incredible synth. I don't want to waste your time, so let's get into it. What's interesting is I said at the beginning that this is the Novation Summit. What I mean by that is that the Novation Summit and the Sequential Prophet X are two synthesizers that have come out recently that have embraced this hybrid architecture. Really, since the 80s, there hasn't been a lot of hybrid synths. And what a hybrid synth is, once again, is we've got all of these different digital waveforms to start with, but then we've got true analog filters and envelopes, which enables this to have the warmth and character of analog, but the versatility of digital. And of course, it goes without saying, the Novation Summit, there's a lot that you can do with that you can't do here. But I'm really fascinated by some of these vintage synths that were, for its time, groundbreaking. This is the first hybrid synth that Korg made. I believe it's the first digital synth Korg made, or synth that has digital parts in it. Yes. So there's a lot of electric piano sounds in here. And I think the reason is because when you think about its time in history, the DW-8000 came out 2 years after Yamaha released the DX7. Little synth history here. The Yamaha DX7 was the first synth that was a digital synth that sold successfully. It was a FM synth. So FM is different from this type of digital synthesis in the sense that you're starting with sine waves and building sound up by creating phase modulation distortion, basically, to create overtones and harmonics. And there's modulators and carriers and all sorts of stuff. But two of the things that FM synthesis started was, one, it started to kill analog. All of a sudden, I mean, it literally put Sequential and Moog out of business. So it also started this gray box with no knobs style user interface. And it's a shame because there's a lot of really cool synths from this era, but they don't have the immediacy of a lot of the other synthesizers from the time. But anyways, in this synth, you'll hear that there's a lot of electric piano sounds and sounds that sort of sound half digital, like half FM, half analog, and they're really interesting. Oh yeah, here we go. Really, really awesome, convincing bassline sound, which was definitely not possible on an analog synth to sound this clean and clear. I mean, it's just throaty and dark. Just really cool, really big, really bad. Ooh, I really like this sound. And I'll apologize too for this real quick. The keyboard is pretty clacky, so if I turn the volume down real quick, you can probably hear it through my mic. it will definitely be noticeable on the final audio. I thought about like going through and trying to mute my mic. We're just trying to check out some of the sounds of the DW-8000 real quick. Anyways, keep moving. And you'll notice that this has this really interesting patch way of saving, where patch 1 is actually, if I'm correct, patch 11. So you've sort of, it's like almost like hexadecimal, but it's 8. It's really fascinating the way they laid that out. This is a great example of how the keyboard has a lot of range when it comes to velocity. So all the way from really quiet, really gentle to you can really let that filter through. And there's sort of some natural compression or something going on that's causing it to have a lot of glue. All right. Also, another thing is there's a digital delay line, which is causing this really cool chorus. So what that is it's actually, you can think of it as like a delay pedal set really short in such a way as to, and with some modulation in there to actually cause it to act like a chorus. So you can get that digital delay line to sound like a chorus, a flanger, or actual just delays. So we'll hear that later, depending on what patch we're on. What beautiful little tine sounds. Daddy loves brass. Oh, here we go. What a cool sound. I wonder how they did that. So I'm guessing there's like some square modulation on the filter with the LFO, but then there's also it sounds like a very complex envelope. And that's another thing. I want to say the envelope in this isn't just ADSR, a 4-stage. It's actually like a 6 or a 7-stage envelope, which set really slow like that gives you a lot of movement. And of course here we can also hear the discrete echoes that I was talking about earlier. What a cool sound. So you get these really big, really warm sounds from this because you do have that analog filter. What's interesting is the tuning is so precise as compared to a voltage controlled oscillator. So what I mean by that is like if I hold this chord down and you listen to the beating of the note against itself, there's a very predictable mathematical sound to it. Whereas if I was doing this with a synth with analog VCOs, they'd sort of wobble in a weird way. So for better or worse, that's the sound of this synth. It sounds so retro wave, so synth wave, so Stranger Things. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, we're going driving in the DeLorean. Bach. Oh, this is Polly. a fucking cool sound. So what attracted me to the synth is actually almost the exact same architecture of the Prologue if you turn the VCOs off. So you start with a digital oscillator, run it through a voltage controlled filter, through voltage controlled envelopes, and yeah, and you have like an LFO, right? And that's more or less the same thing. This actually has a couple of LFOs because whatever's going on with the LFO normally, you also have like a discrete one that can control like the pitch of the vibrato on this little joystick over here, or it controls the VCF. So you can kind of get little dubby type sounds on a lot of these presets. They were like saying, hey, look, maybe you don't want to get into this whole FM thing. It's a little too complex, too crazy, too cold and brittle and dead sounding. So we'll give you the best of both worlds. You've basically got something that can do analog and something that can do those sounds that you want from the DX7. Speaking of cold and brittle. Wow. Oh, I love an electric guitar type lead. That was really cool, this one. Interesting how the velocity tracks there kind of a little randomly. Trying to see if there's anything that happens with the aftertouch. So this has aftertouch. However, I've yet to notice it. And it might just be because the aftertouch is so like old. Or maybe there's nothing on this particular patch. Ooh, this one's nice with the delay. I don't know what to describe that sound as. It almost sounds like a choir thing. So over here, you'll see this auto bend. I don't know if you guys can read that on the video, but what this synth also has, which is a really cool feature, is a dedicated envelope just to control the pitch at the beginning of the sound. So what that means is that you can do things like have the pitch bend up for a second or bend down for a second, which sort of simulates the realism of, in this case, I think sort of like a human voice or something like that. But also just instruments like brass really benefit from this. And it was something that people did as like a secret technique. If you were pretty good at synthesis, you knew how to make really convincing synth brass sounds by doing that. But now it's actually just like a feature of more or less every sound. And again, instead of giving you a bunch of routing destinations and stuff and things you can do, they sort of set the DW-8000 up so that you just like, you have one pitch envelope that controls this. You've got one LFO to do whatever you want with, but then you have like a hidden one over here that controls the vibrato and so forth. So it's really cleverly laid out. That filter though. So another thing people have mentioned about this synth is that the filter may have been the best one Korg ever made. And I think just listening to it now, you probably hear why this is the legendary filter. I mean, this and the one that was in the Poly 6 are really the two that everybody talks about, lust after. And here I think it really starts to shine. These are the sounds that I really haven't heard anywhere but on a synth like this. It doesn't sound like a DX7. It sounds way too warm and beautiful and rich. Ooh, this one's nice. There, the sound of it, the combination of the release and the delay almost sounds like a reverb, which is very beautiful, considering there's no reverb on this unit. This joystick feels really good, actually. It's a little, you know, it feels a little bit like cheap plastic, but the feel of it's actually quite nice. When I feel it on its own, I'm like, ooh, it's a little bendy or whatever. By the time I'm playing, like it actually is a pretty cool way to control it. I kind of prefer it to the typical pitch bend and mod wheel thing, because with this, you actually really kind of get it locked in. So really neat. Big synth sounds. Little organ action. Kind of a variant on that voice pad that we had earlier. Oh, this one's it. Oh, yes, daddy. Give it to me. Oh, that filter. Really, really beautiful sounding. Listen to the character of that. Really interesting. The motion in the synth is very predictable, very mathematical, as compared to something like maybe a synth where you get a little bit of a, you know, like I said, a little bit more analog drift. You can hear a little bit of the pitch bend here on the front of the auto bend. Reminds me a bit of the running up that hill sort of a sound. Almost have like a grainy Fantasia type sound. D50 type sound 2 years before the D50 came out. It is crazy how big and long and complex some of these sounds are. I mean, there's a lot of sounds in the presets that are sort of like simple electric piano sounds, and there's like 20 of these presets were like synth brass. But when we get into these types of sounds, I'm like, wow, this thing's really big and interesting and can do a lot more than just that type of a thing. It's a shame they don't have more patches like that utilize the full capacity of the synth. Sort of like a chorus Stratocaster. Really beautiful again. And the motion, again, I'm just struck by how predictable or mathematical the motion sounds in this compared to other synths of the era. Oh yeah, here we go. See how it sounds low. Really cool. One thing I haven't mentioned is you'll notice that every time I change the program number, the parameter number shows up. What that is that when you save a patch, the last parameter you touched gets set to this fader. So you basically have one fader of control live, which is okay because, I mean, in a way, you've got some modulation stuff that can happen over here in addition to that. So the filter and the vibrato and pitch bend. Oh, finally we had one weird ass sound. And okay, so on this one it's detune. But we can't get this really clean. Or we can get it really... Oh, I love that. The fact that you can clean it all the way up. Very beautiful like that. So yeah, it's an interesting little feature that I totally missed trying out on all the patches on the first pass. But it's there, and I thought I would mention it while we were just turning this on for the first time and hearing how it sounds. Overall, I think this is a really, really, really cool synth. And I'm excited to do more videos on it and maybe get into some of the architecture of it and how it works and so on under the hood. So anyways, I'm Alex from Vulture Culture. If you like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It makes a huge difference. And I'll see you in the next video.